And now let's start the action with round number 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Combat Sports Live. You're in round number 1. We're talking about the UFC and Strikeforce. Big fight last weekend, Charles. We were just kind of discussing that during the break. Overeem's win over Brett Rogers. I mean, he just basically just destroyed him in under 4 minutes in the first round.
Absolutely. Spent, 2/3 of the time of the first, round on the ground, and, I believe hit him with 54 of the 62 strikes, on the ground and just punishing him. So, definitely a dominant performance, and he came out of that fight clean. If you looked at him in the post-fight interview, it looked like he'd been jumping rope, breaking a sweat. He didn't look like he'd been in a fight.
Well, when you talk about a fighter like Alistair Overeem, and reflecting back on Brett Rogers' fight with Fedor back in the fall, first round Brett Rogers had what I felt like, he had Fedor on the ropes, so to speak. Took him down, was doing some effective ground and pound, and there was a few moments where I really thought that we were seeing the destruction of Fedor at the hands of Brett Rogers.
And Andrei Arlovski had done the same or similar thing. He had him on the ropes, and the one thing about Fedor is he finds a way to land that shot.
Certainly,
he lands that finishing blow. Even sometimes when he's trailing in a fight and you're thinking, like you said, I'm seeing it. History's being made,
right?
And then he knocks somebody's head off.
Yeah, he did that with Kevin Randleman when Kevin Randleman spiked him on his head in what I think is, definitely the most spectacular MMA slam of all time. I mean, he just picked Fedor up, and just directly parallel slammed him on his head, and then Fedor a minute later has regained control of the fight. He has Kevin Randleman, and he submits him in the next 30 seconds. And so
he's a finisher, and when you're in a fight with that guy, even when you're controlling it, he's never you're never off the hook. He's always got a chance, and he seems to be the guy, at least right now in his career, that cashes in those chances and makes them win. So will he continue to do that forever? Obviously he won't, but who's going to be the guy? That'll be interesting to see. Who's going to be the guy that actually, hurts him and keeps him hurt and doesn't let him off the hook and finishes him?
I think that person could very well be Alistair Overeem, and I'll tell you why. I mean, you've got when Fedor fought Brett Rogers, and, Brett he broke Fedor's nose. You had him very much in trouble. You just didn't see Overeem going into that kind of deep water with Rogers. I mean, he at virtually no time did Rogers have Overeem in trouble. So if you're thinking about litmus test, they both fought the same fighter. Rogers certainly did more damage to Fedor than he did to Overeem. It gives you the impression that if and when they get together, it's going to be a fight where Fedor could be perceived as the underdog, even though he is the unstoppable and he is the 31-1 monster that he is perceived to be. I think that Overeem probably has more of a chance to beat him than anyone else on the planet right now.
I don't disagree with you, and I'd like to see Fedor, before everybody proclaims him the best in the world, and the heavyweight that nobody wants to face, and the guy that can't get beat. I'd like to see him really fight top-level UFC competition, but we all know the chances of that happening right now are slim to none.
Well, the thing that worries me about, Fedor's, fight potential and possible matchups in the future, it's going to be difficult, I think, for them to make matchups for Fedor even in the Strikeforce organization because of Fedor's notoriously difficult management company. M1 Global that owns the fight rights for Fedor has been, again, notoriously difficult when it comes to making matchups for him and making very, very, very difficult to meet standards for.
Well, that's obvious in the fact that he is the uncrowned champion of the world, and he's not even the Strikeforce champion.
Right.
They don't have him in a title contest yet. Now, whether that's negotiations or how they're bringing him in, that guy should have had a title shot his first fight if he is, the anointed champion. What are you doing? He should have the belt. He should be the guy that's the face of Strikeforce. Mm-hmm. And that kind of amazes me. But it could be well, like you say, the negotiations.
And it's funny when you're talking about the face of Strikeforce, Alistair Overeem is the reigning heavyweight champion, and then you have Scott Coker, the president, saying Alistair has earned the right to fight Fedor, and it's like, shouldn't that be the other way around? I would say. I mean, shouldn't it be, here's our champion?
Fedor's earned the right to face your champion.
Right. So it's,
it's an upstart, like you said. Strikeforce is still getting all the kinks out, getting their roster of fighters in line, and that's important for an organization. So, I enjoyed Saturday night's fights. Jacare, that was an incredible display of talent. For the first time, I got outside the box and watched something other than UFC and WEC and spent time on it, and I enjoyed the show. And I hope they evolve and do all the things they need to do, and we'll be able to see that in the future. But it was a pleasure. I'm gonna let them off the mat a little bit and let them kind of figure their thing out. And if Fedor's going to be their champion, that's great. I'd like to get it that way, so then we can get into the Fedor-Lesnar debate over who the real king is. And now after seeing Jacare fight, I believe GSP's got some worries if you want to start talking promotion to promotion, who's the best 170.
Yeah.
Because Jacare is a beast.
Absolutely. When you see him, especially when he's on the ground, you just realize that you're dealing with a fighter that's just on a completely different level than 97% of all the fighters that are in that weight class. And Jacare does. He bounces back between 170, 185. And just kind of talking about an organization like Strikeforce, I think it's great that you've got a organization like Strikeforce that are bringing guys like Ronaldo Jacare Souza or an Aoki or these fighters that have been competing in Japan and aren't really known to the United States market at all.
Well, they're not known, but once you watch, when you introduce these guys as a Jits black belt, just to say that Jacare is a Jits black belt, that doesn't get him the credit. Once you see him, take a guy down, I think he was like 8 for 12 in takedowns, and once he was on top, he just inflicted his will, had a couple of great submission attempts that was aggressive stuff that you don't traditionally see, unique things that you don't really see. And, at the end, he's a great talent. And Strikeforce, they've got some talent over there. Hope that organization can, keep it afloat and keep it right and see what happens in the end. So we'll see. We'll see as the future comes out.
And they're definitely doing the right things. And, it's great to see that talent displayed. And and it's definitely enjoyable to watch this organization grow.
And we got the UWC coming up this weekend to watch something different and new also.
Absolutely,
at least to us. And
probably I've had the pleasure to be at a UWC show. It's one of the best regional shows on the East Coast, maybe the best on the East Coast. And stick around, folks. We're going to be talking more about the UWC coming up. We're also going to be visiting in with a UWC celebrity who actually fought in the UWC and went on to the Ultimate Fighter. His name is Chris the Savage McRae. He's going to be calling in, and we'll also be touching base with Marcelo Ferran, the president of UWC, to get the full lineup of this weekend events. Folks, stick around. Round 2's coming up on Combat Sports Live.